Exodus 8, and just backing up to the previous verse, just to make sure we get context here. 7 full days passed after the Lord struck the Nile. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and tell him, this is what the Lord has said. Release my people in order that they may serve me. But if, if you refuse to release them, then I am going to plague all your territory with frogs. The Nile will swarm with frogs, and they will come up and go into your house, in your bedroom, and on your bed, and into the houses of your servants and your people, and into your ovens and your kneading trough." Sorry, I lost my place. Oh, there we go. "Frogs will come up against you, your people, and all your servants." The Lord spoke to Moses, "Tell Aaron, extend your hand with the staff over the rivers, over the canals, over the ponds, and bring the frogs up over the land of Egypt." So Aaron extended his hand over the waters of Egypt, and frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. The magicians did the same thing with their secret arts, and brought up frogs on the land of Egypt too. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Pray to the Lord that he may take the frogs away from me and my people, and I will release the people that they may sacrifice to the Lord." Moses said to Pharaoh, "You may have the honor over me. When shall I pray for you, your servants and your people, for the frogs to be removed from you and your house, so that they will be left only in the Nile?" He said, "Tomorrow." And Moses said, "It will be as you say, so that you may know that there is no one like the Lord our God. The frogs will depart from you, your houses, your servants, and your people. There will be left only in the Nile." Then Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried to the Lord because of the frogs that he had brought on Pharaoh. The Lord did as Moses asked. The frogs died in the houses, the villages, and the fields. The Egyptians piled them in countless heaps, and the land stank. But when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart and did not listen to them, just as the Lord had predicted. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, extend your staff and strike the dust of the ground, and it will become gnats throughout all the land of Egypt." They did so. Aaron extended his hand with his staff. He struck the dust of the ground, and it became gnats on the people and on animals. All the dust of the ground became gnats throughout all the land of Egypt. When the magicians attempted to bring forth gnats by their secret arts, they could not. So there were gnats on the people and on animals. The magician said to Pharaoh, "It is the finger of God." But Pharaoh's heart remained hard, and he did not listen to them, just as the Lord had predicted. The Lord said to Moses, "Get up early in the morning and position yourself before Pharaoh as he goes out to the water, and tell him, 'This is what the Lord has said. Release my people that they may serve me. If you do not release my people, then I am going to send swarms of flies on you and on your servant and on your people. And in your houses, the houses of the Egyptians will be full of flies, and even the ground they stand on. But on that day I will mark off the land of Goshen, where my people are staying, so that no swarms of flies will be there, that you may know that I am the Lord in the midst of the land. I will put a division between my people and your people. This sign will take place tomorrow." The Lord did so. A thick swarm of flies came into Pharaoh's house and into the houses of his servants and throughout the whole land of Egypt. The land was ruined because of the swarms of flies. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Go sacrifice to your God within the land." But Moses said, "That would not be the right thing to do. For the sacrifice we make to the Lord our God would be an abomination to the Egyptians. If we make sacrifices that are an abomination to the Egyptians right before their eyes, will they not stone us? We must go on a 3-day journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God, just as he is telling us. Pharaoh said, I will release you so you may sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness. Only you must not go very far. Do pray for me. Moses said, I am going to go out from you and pray to the Lord. And the swarms of flies will go away from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people tomorrow. Only do not let Pharaoh deal falsely again by not releasing the people to sacrifice to the Lord. So Moses went out from Pharaoh and prayed to the Lord, and the Lord did as Moses asked. He removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from his servants, from his people. Not one remained. But Pharaoh hardened his heart this time also and did not release the people. Okay, so from the end of the last plague, we now have 7 full days. And I want you to notice as we go through, some of these plagues are go to Pharaoh and tell him about this, and some plagues are go and do this. We kind of get the idea that every single time Pharaoh is warned about the plague, he's not always warned about the plague, at least the way the storytelling is going. So pay attention to those differences. Then the Lord, 7 days later, after the striking of the Nile, which is the first plague. So did it take 7 days to clear up? That might be a good thought. It doesn't say. 7 could also just be a representation of the fullness of time when the Nile was completely turned and returned. So we don't have to assume 7 being actual days on a calendar. It could be symbolic here. But anyway, 7 days later, if it is exactly 7 days later, the Lord said to Moses, go to Pharaoh and tell him, this is what the Lord has said. Release my people in order to serve me. But if you refuse to release them, I'm going to give you a plague, all your territory with frogs. Now, I believe there's also a God who looks like a frog. Frog is mentioned in the Old Testament only in conjunction with the plagues. Suggests that the word frogs, Sephardim, may be an onomatopoeic word, something like croakers. It is of Egyptian origin and could be a Hebrew attempt to write the Arabic dofta. The plague, all your borders with frogs. The expression, all your borders, is figurative for the territory of Egypt and the people and the things that are within the borders. There is one of the gods of Egypt is a frog god. So here we have an attack on the frog god. Think in Egypt, the frog god has to do with fertility. So this is going to be attack on the fertility of the people. If the frogs are all there and then they're later piling up all these dead frogs, you have too much of an abundance of fertility, and then you have too little an abundance of fertility. So the Nile swarms with frogs, because that's going to be where they're coming from. They will come up and go out in the houses, the bedrooms, on your bed, in your house of your servants, and your people, into your ovens and your kneading troughs. I love this image. The frogs are just going to be everywhere. They're going to be like you're trying to make some bread, and you open your oven, and there's frogs in there. They're just hopping everywhere. The frogs are hopping to their death into the oven, and they're in your kneading trough. You can't prepare food. You got frogs in everything. They're everywhere. You can't contain them. Frogs are just hopping around, and there's so many frogs. They're not afraid of you. They're just like, it's just horrible. Frogs would come against you, your people, and all your servants. The Lord spoke to Moses, tell Aaron extend his hand over the staff, the rivers, and the canals. So we have the command, go to Pharaoh and tell him. We don't actually have the story of them showing up. We just skip to God saying to Moses, tell Aaron extend his hand over the staffs, over the rivers, over the canals. So we assume that he did go to Pharaoh. Pharaoh didn't release. We're just skipping that part of the story because this happens over and over again. We can just fill in that part of the story here, jump to the next thing, because he said he was told to go, and then he's told to extend his hand. So yes, that piece did indeed happen, but we want the action moving forward here. So over the canals, over the ponds, we want the repetition there. Aaron extended his hands over the waters of Egypt, and frogs came up and covered the land. The magicians did the same with their sacred arts and brought up frogs on the land of Egypt too. Battletoads, Uncle Teddy? Maybe a little bit different than Battletoads, but I like that thought. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron. So now we have them being summoned. The frogs are here. We had the, hey, I'll take away, or no, that's coming up. Pray to the Lord to get rid of the frogs from my people, and I will release the people that they may go and sacrifice. Moses said, you may have the honor over me. When shall I pray for you, your servants and your people, for the frogs to be removed from your houses so that they will not be left in the Nile? This is a fascinating thing. Hipta ale is problematic. The verb would be simply translated honor yourself or deck yourself with honor. It would be used as a bad sense of self-exaltation, but here it seems to mean have the honor or advantage over me in choosing when remove the frogs. The LXS has a point for me. Moses is doing something that extends a courtesy to Pharaoh. He is giving him the upper hand in choosing the time, but is also a test for if Pharaoh picked the time, it would appear less likely that Moses was manipulating things. My trust in God is so strong. Well, I don't think it's Moses manipulating things. Pharaoh and his people who can control some elements and things, they don't have control of when things happen. They pray for things to happen, and they either happen or they don't happen. Moses is extending a courtesy, yes, a privilege to Pharaoh, but it's also, my God is so powerful, he can do it exactly when you ask it to be done. So if you tell me when you want it done, he's so powerful, he can do it at that very moment that you are asking it to be done. On some level, it seems to us like, why would you do this? But yes, Pharaoh's magicians have the power to do things. The story is moving and progressing. It doesn't tell us how long it takes them to reproduce the things. Maybe it takes an hour of incantation for them to be able to do it. The point isn't that what and how they do it. The point is they're able to accomplish it. So it may leave those pieces out. Here, Moses is saying, my God has the power and I have the power to call on him, and he can grant the request of when. He's not only so powerful to do the thing, but he can do it when. So I love that aspect of it as well. He's giving a when in here, which is different from the other plagues. He's adding something new. As we progress through the plagues, there's something unique and different as we go through. It shifts, it moves, it modifies, so that each time there is a piece of this that is showing the power of God. So the frogs will depart from your house tomorrow. He said tomorrow. I wonder what the word is there. So Exodus 8:10. Let's go look that up real quick. Is it just simply the word for tomorrow? Mahar. It's not a word I look up, probably. Mahar. Okay, simply tomorrow, time to come. So nothing specific there. Okay. Didn't think there was, but just thought, just in case it was more specific to like dawn or midday, if it had any of those kind of connotations, which it doesn't seem to. So tomorrow, not today, tomorrow. Moses and Aaron went out. Moses cried to the Lord. Let me see what I have here. The verb satzak is used for a prayer in which people cry out of trouble or from danger. So this is not pray, this is cried out. So this is from the trouble and the danger. The Lord, because of the frogs that have been brought on Pharaoh. The Lord did as Moses asked. The frogs died in the houses, the villages, and the fields. The Egyptians piled them in countless heaps, and the land stank. Okay, so we have the river turning to blood, and the fish, or the river, stinks. Now we have something coming up out of the river onto the land, and now the land stinks. So we have the bridge between the water and the land with frogs that can go in both. So we have that sphere, and now they are dead. But when Pharaoh saw there was relief, he hardened his heart. So he sees God did this at the time that he said, and when there is God being more powerful than he expects him to be, it causes him to harden his heart. And he did not listen to them, just as the Lord had predicted. The Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron, okay, we do not know how long this is. It reads like it's the next day. The third plague is briefly announced. Moses and Aaron were simply to strike the dust so that it would become gnats. Not only was this plague unannounced, but also it was not duplicated by the Egyptians. Yeah, so here we don't have go and tell this to Pharaoh. We don't have go and ask him to let my people go. I think at this point we may have had the request done 5 times if we're counting it correctly, because we have 3 plagues. We have the serpent staff, and we have the going initially and the not going to have straw. So I think we are at 5 times, which would be representative of the Torah. You have already had the request of God. You know what you're supposed to do. You don't need it asked again. Don't know how long this is between the frogs. On some level, you might need to have the frogs, buried, piled up, decomposing, whatever else, maybe in a little ways almost forgotten, and then tell him to strike it, the dust of the ground. Why the dust of the ground? Well, life from God came from the dust of the ground. So striking the dust of the ground, we have land, and we already had the river. Now we're going to have the land. The frogs are the in-between. So now we have the land, which is going to become gnats throughout the land of Egypt. The insect kinim has been variously identified as lice, gnats, ticks, fleas, or mosquitoes. Lice follows the reading of the Peshitta and the Targums, and so Josephus. Greek and Latin had gnats. By gnats, many commentators mean mosquitoes, which in around the water of Egypt were abundant, and the translators of the Greek text are familiar with Egypt. Whenever they came from the dust and were troublesome to the people and animals. I am more inclined, since they're coming from the dust and not from the Nile, to not think of them being mosquitoes. I am inclined to go with the lice, because the Egyptians detest lice. It's one of the reasons why they shave their body hair, is to not invite lice. They have a horrible disdain for lice. But we could go down the trail of trying to figure out which god it is. If we were doing more study on each plague at a time, I would do that. Let's just keep moving. They did so. Aaron struck his hand with the staff in the dust of the ground, and it became gnats on the people and on animals. All the dust of the ground became gnats throughout all the land of Egypt. When the magicians attempted to bring forth gnats with the secret arts, they could not. So there were gnats on the people. The magician said to Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. This is an amazing thing. The magicians know they can't do this. They see God at work. The word finger is a bold anthropomorphism, a figure of speech in which God is described using human characteristics. The point of the magician's word is clear enough. They knew they were beaten, and by whom. The reason for the word choice, finger, has occasioned many theories, none of which is entirely satisfying. At least their statements highlight that the plague was accomplished by the power with the majestic ease and effortlessness. Perhaps the reason that they could not do this was that it involved producing life from the dust of the ground, as in Genesis 2:7. The creative power of God confronted the magicians of the Egyptians and brought on those loathsome plagues. Why could they do the water to blood? Because it's just, taking and causing death in some way, so they could do that. What about the snake? Well, they are familiar with and play with the snake. Frogs, yeah, and they're coming from the Nile, so there's already a source there. So they're not creating. I don't know, I buy that idea, but I do like the connection of dust from the ground, of creation, that they are coming from there. I do see that, but I also see life coming out of the water as well as life coming on the dry ground. So they can't do it, but Pharaoh's heart remains hard. So when God can do something at a time specific, it hardens Pharaoh's heart. When the magicians say there's a real God there and he's the one doing it, it causes him to harden his heart. If he believes it, he hardens his heart. If he can't believe it, he hardens his heart. Pharaoh does not like these things, not at all. My guys can do it, I'll harden my heart. They can't do it, I'll harden my heart. So then the Lord said to Moses, get up in the morning and position yourself before Pharaoh as he goes out to the water, and tell him, this is what the Lord says, release my people so they may serve me. If you do not release my people, then I am going to send swarms of flies. So we do not have a relief from this plague. We don't have a relief from the lice or the gnats. We just have the next piece of the story. So, does Pharaoh come and plead for them to be gone? Do they just subside? This is one of those reasons why I point out there's time gaps in the story. There's time gaps. So get up early in the morning and position yourself between Pharaoh when he goes to the water. Moses did this with the first one. Now we're going to go again to be before Pharaoh when he's by the water, and you're going to say, release my people so they may serve me. So we had several cries to release. Then we had a plague without an intervention. Now we're going to go and call him again to do this. We're going to go from gnats to flies, swarms of flies. We'll see what the footnote says. The word a rove means a mix or a swarm. It seems that some irritating kind of flying insect is involved. Psalm 78 says the Egyptians were eaten and devoured by them. Various suggestions have been made over the years. It could refer to beast or reptiles. The Greek took it as the dogfly, a vicious blood-sucking gadfly, more common in the spring than in the fall. The ordinary housefly, which is a symbol in Egypt, Isaiah 7:18. The beetle, which gnaws and bites plants and animals and materials. The fly probably fits the details of the passage best. The plague would have greatly infested a problem of the fly. So we got multiple ideas of which one it could be. Omega, good morning. Wouldn't it be interesting if the finger of God and confronting were connected, with Jesus confronting the multitude with the adulteress and the drawing on the ground? Well, we have the finger of God showing up in Daniel when he writes mene tekel upharsa, something along those lines, with the judging there. You making that connection, I'm just suddenly going, what if that's what he wrote on the ground? What if that's what he wrote on the ground? That would be a fascinating thing. But let's just jump back here. The finger of God, I didn't kind of go into that, but the outstretched hand is the hand of power, the hand that can act. The finger can point to something, and a finger can make it happen. I think it also could be a gesture of you giving the cue for something to happen, could be it. Or it could be that God himself did indeed touch the ground and caused it to happen. So that would make more connection to Jesus then. So we've got swarms of flies on your servants and on your people and in your houses. The house of the Egyptians will be full of flies, even on the ground where you stand. But that day I will mark off the land of Goshen, where my people are staying, so that no swarms or flies will be there, that you may know that I am the Lord in the midst of the land. So in the previous plague, we have God denoting time of when things can happen, we've had the denotion of time of the clearing up of a plague. We have it can do a plague that your magicians can't do, and now we're going to have I can protect my people from these plagues. So the others were all saying throughout all the land. So we can make the assumption the frogs were in Goshen. We can make the assumption that the lice or the gnats were in Goshen. Now we're going to have that, wait a minute, the flies aren't going to go to Goshen. They're going to be separated out. So God can separate and do things on the time scale. He can also do those of a limiting boundary. They won't cross this boundary. This is where they are, which is not the power that the Egyptians' gods have. They can't do that. But he's giving him different clues to know that I'm more powerful than any of your gods. This will take place tomorrow. So we don't know what the time frame is between the last plague and this plague. Again, I think we need to think of, there needs to be some cleanup, there needs to be some time lapse so that we have these going on, not this is happening in 1 week. Oh, you tried not to leave without warning? Oh, it's all good. It's all good. I appreciate that. The Lord did so a thick swarm of flies came into Pharaoh's house and into the houses of his servants throughout the whole land of Egypt. The land was ruined because of these flies. The land was ruined. The preceding the LXX, this was called in the house of Pharaoh. Okay, don't know that there's much there. Not going to go down there. Father Hunman, welcome in. So we have the flies come, and then Pharaoh summons Moses and Aaron. Go sacrifice to your God within the land. Okay, I've had enough of this. I'll let you do this. He is going to try to accommodate them in some small way, but he's like, you're not getting what you want. I need to get rid of this. I'm tired of this. I'll go part way. But Moses said, that would not be the right thing to do. For sacrifices we make to our God would be an abomination to the Egyptians. Okay? It is something that is off limits, something that is taboo. It can be translated detestable or loathsome. Okay? So we often over-exaggerate the word that something is an abomination to God. It is detestable. It is loathsome. It is taboo. It is off limits. Okay, so for the people of God, there are things that are off limits. They should not be done. That's true. But the first use of abomination is here about the Egyptians thinking that the Hebrews are an abomination themselves. They are off limits. They are taboo. Why? Because they're shepherds and they have hair. That's part of why they're loathsome and detestable. Here, doing their sacrifices in front of are going to be that way. And so, if we make the sacrifices, they're likely to come and stone us, aren't they? We got to go 3 days' journey into the wilderness to our God, just as he is telling us. We got to go 3 days' journey, just like God has said to do. 3 days into the desert. Father Hunman, you asked your buddy what anticipation means. He told me to wait, and he'll tell you later. There we go. And hello, Supersonic. So Pharaoh said, I will release you so you may sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness. Only you must not go very far. Do pray for me. So the construct is very emphatic. First, it uses the verbal hendiades with a hifil imperfect and the kal infinitive construct. You will not make far to go, meaning you will not go far. But this prohibition is then emphasized with the additional infinitive absolute. You will not in any way go too far. The point is very strong to safeguard the concession. So, I will let you go. You do not go very far. Don't go far at all. But it's supposed to be a 3-day journey. So, does that mean you can't go 3 days? Is that what he's saying? But I'll let you go, but you have to pray for me. That's what you got to do. Moses said, I am going to go out from you and pray to the Lord, for the swarms of flies will go away from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people tomorrow. So again, tomorrow. We're not doing it today. We're doing it tomorrow. I'm going to stick with when you ask for things to be done. Tomorrow. The fly's gone. Tomorrow, they're still going to bite today. Yeah. But he's warning him, only do not deal falsely again by not releasing the people to sacrifice to the Lord. So we've gotta release. You promised. So Moses went to Pharaoh, out from Pharaoh, and prayed to the Lord, and the Lord did as Moses asked. He removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from the servants, and from his people. Not one remained. But Pharaoh hardened his heart this time also and did not release the people. So once again, doesn't matter what God does, Pharaoh is not going to listen. Pharaoh is just going to harden his heart anyway and not release the people. So I hope you're seeing one of the things is this progression of new ways in which the plague is happening, depending upon which one of the animals it's actually referring to. Is this the scarab? Well, the scarab beetle is an important thing within Egypt. Is it lice? Lice is a detestable thing within Egypt. So as we go through, and then we would see, and if we wanted to go through, and other people have done this, so I'm not going to, you could go search for it. There are specific God or multiple gods with each one of these plagues that God is assaulting on them. So swarms coming, there are gods who are over the swarms to keep them at bay, to keep them away from the crops. Also, what would likely eat gnats if it was gnats and not lice? And I don't care what it is, frogs. But all the frogs came out of the river and died. So that could produce the abundance of the gnats that were coming, or mosquitoes. Any of those, frogs might eat them. Also, what's going to eat the flies? The frogs. So we've got the frogs are all dead. The frogs haven't repopulated here. The river apparently didn't kill the frogs, but it chased them out. So all of the stench, all of the death, chased them out into the land. The land has now become a distasteful thing because of the frogs. And now we have other plagues on top of it. Lice, a detestable thing, or gnats, and then flies. Like, these are just like nuisance upon nuisance, horrible things. And the Egyptians, including Pharaoh, has no power to stop them. Yes, he could duplicate doing the plague, or his magicians could, for the first several of them, but they no longer can do this. And so Pharaoh has his heart hardened.